Hi everybody, my name is Luke, and today I'm just going to be doing a walkthrough on my blockout for a Halo Forge campaign level. It is a single player, just get latest. It is a single player experience designed for that, or 1 to 2 players ideally. For this is more of a level design study. So a lot of this is focusing on gameplay flow, the visual aspects of the level, and directing the player using environment design. Unfortunately, I'm not too sure why the camera there has decided to not really love the start screen, but we're good from here. Let's step in. So the initial idea for this level was very basic premise, where the players have essentially crash landed in this small little woodland grove, and the only way is forward. This is very inspired by the first level of Halo 3, Sierra 117. So immediately when you get down here, you get a nice visual, an audio trigger for some enemies are in the area, and I also wanted to introduce the player to this concept here. So this is one of the terminals you can interact with. If I interact with this one, you can hear the alarm goes off. It is currently broken with a couple sparks. It comes in later. And here we guide the player to their end objective as the radio tower. So I really wanted to capture in this bit just framing the character's attention. And as you get closer, it obviously opens up and you can see a lot more of your surroundings. There's some ruins. And if you do come down here, you can see that there is a small village down there where some enemies have been dropped off. So you can get like a bit of a lay of the land and the progression of the level from here. Circling back around, we'll see that tower has fallen down, which allows us to get over this waterfall gap. Being a blockout, obviously, this is all very rudimentary, just communicating simple ideas. Coming through here, we get our first encounter. Here, I really wanted to give the player a good bit of cover, a bit of an introduction to the action, which then leads down into the cave area. And a lot of this level, I wanted to use visual indications on where the player should go. So we use this as a leading line out to this main area, but also the player backtracks. They can also get rewarded with some additional weaponry. So with the first village area, coming into here, I wanted the player to have an opportunity to look down upon what they're getting into before they're in too serious danger. As I get shot by everything. So with this, the player does have a few different options coming in here. I wanted to give them 3 main areas they could go. You've got the central space to the left, where you've got this small elevated ridge, where a couple of enemies are up here. Draw the player's attention to show this is a space that they can go to. And there was also one over by the riverside, over that end. If I can stay alive long enough, that is. Let's try and loop around. So I wanted to give players some options as to cover with these little houses. And I wanted to make sure that you didn't get dead ends. You didn't have one-way houses. There's always options as to where the player can loop around. Such as this, you can vault up, roll in this space here. With Halo Infinite's increased movement compared to a lot of last Halo games as well, I wanted to give the player a bit more vertical, interesting vertical options. So with this, we can also vault up here, and a few different spaces the player can jump around. Now, in this bit, we bring back the terminal, which we can see there is a wire that leads to this door to give a visual indication to the player that these two objects are connected. when I interact with it, it begins to open. But also, we get the audio indication that there are more enemies here. This I wanted to use as a recontextualization of the space the player's been in. So obviously when they've initially come in to fight here, they've come from this direction forward. And now we're having the tables flipped on us, so we're having to reevaluate the cover that we previously used. But the player is most likely going to have the enemy using it against them now. And they'll have to plan accordingly. Which I didn't. Ooh, my aim is terrible today. Carrying on through here, you'll notice a lot of these early areas use a funnel shape to direct the player forward. That way we're not having the player get lost as they're going through different areas. So this is a forested area that I wanted to be as like a jackal sniper area. A lot more claustrophobic than the areas that we've been in previously. It forces the player to look up a lot more. Puts them on the back foot, makes you feel a lot more vulnerable than you previously have been. Now this area is a circular space, as I wanted the player to be led forward, top up on some ammo if they'd like, and then looking back we can see that the only way forward is this open space to the sky here. I've used the yellow to indicate multiple ledges, which obviously in later production would be replaced with more aesthetic things. From here, coming out, you can also see that we have the radio tower once again framed, giving that indication that the player is going forward this direction. We can also see back on the path that we've taken. That way the player gets a sense of how much they've progressed through the level, and they can continue on from there. Coming up here, we come into this first little factory opening area. Got a few bits going on. Enemies are now using verticality against us. A little bit more than they were previously. We're wanting to run in and out of cover here. Come up here. Take out these enemies. And our objective here, as we can see, we've got another door. This time we've increased the difficulty of the puzzle though. And we can see that the wire actually leads from here over to the house. Apologies if you can hear the rubbish truck in the background. Great timing for them to roll by. So we'll come through here and we can see we've got our terminal here. We can also see now we've had 2 boss encounters. Let's pick up the handy rocket launcher we've been gifted here. Try and take a few more shots. There we are. Come through here into the central factory area. Get a nice bit of an ammo top up. Come into the main factory section here. As we can see, the enemies are now on the defensive. Take a bit of cover. And again, I wanted to face the player with a minimum of 3 options. We have the 2 hallways down there and the central area, but we are being pinned down by a turret, so let's move around. Get a bit of distance. Ooh. We did get the turret, though. So this area, I did want to mess around a bit more with the sandbox. So you can see we've got a few more explosives in the area that the player is able to use. And also, we have a bit of movement with some crates going back and forth. Trying to give the sense that this facility may be abandoned, is potentially being repurposed for something by the Banished. All the enemies dead, let's move on to the final area where we have our escape helipad. Once again, we've got our final use of the terminal. We're going to call in for an evacuation. And in classic Halo fashion, we're going to have a last holdout while we wait for our escape. Now, as you can see here, we've got two areas off to the sides. These are the primary enemy drop-in locations. And we also do have an under area. So we encourage a bit of player movement. The top is quite dangerous, so the player will want to be running around in here as well. Under here, we might have a couple of equipment modules. And we want to give a bit of option for the player to be able to make an escape. So we do have options to be able to jump up and out. Now, enemies are also using the underground area. We want to make sure we're going back and forth quite a bit. Let's take that skewer. Now we've got an increase in difficulty with elites coming in. Ooh, the under area might be a bit dangerous for us right now. Ooh. The skewer, unfortunately, is the one weapon I have always been rubbish with. Let's see if we can get this weapon. Ooh. Ooh, I think I hurt myself more than the elite with that. With that bloody explosive. Alright. Last one. Once we've taken them out, we got our final push encounter to test our skills before our eventual escape. Get our boss encounter here. And from here, just to make sure we're keeping the player topped up with weaponry, there will be a looping check of if all enemies have been cleared. If they have, eventually another Phantom will come in. Ooh, getting a bit distracted. Another Phantom will come in, just with some basic enemies that the player can take out relatively easy. And that'll make sure that they're at least kept topped up on weaponry, and they're not going to worry about running out of ammo and having to try and contend with the boss at the same time. Also, probably not the best idea to try and melee a guy with a hammer. See if we can get that helmet off him. There we are. A little reward. Let's take this gravity hammer for a spin. I believe that should be all the enemies taken care of. Now that we've done that, our escort has finally arrived. It's coming in for pickup. And that's our level. So a lot of it is very much a focus on communicating to the player, direction, giving them options, breathing space, and making sure that they're clear on where they want to be directed. And also communicating to player the smaller gameplay elements with the terminals and connected ideas from there. What I'll do is I'll do a quick walkthrough of the Forge blockout itself and just point out a couple of little details here and there. Okay, and here we are in the Forged level. So as you can see with the bird's eye view, we've got a rough kind of idea of the level where the player can come through here, loop back around, and very snaky all along to this final holdout. So hopefully you can't hear the drilling in the background of my apartment. But as you can see, the main focus of this was to give player visual indications really clear. So framing was a big thing for me, where I wanted to make sure I frame the most important things. Whether that's through there, when you're coming out of the cave, you get a clear visual of the village below you. And being in a position of dominance, you also get the opportunity to kind of get a full lay of the land, where things are, how you might want to approach this section. As soon as the door is open here, it'll also give you a visual indication through here. And also reminders, as you can see here, if I look up, it's also clearly framing with these trees, the radio tower, showing that you are getting closer, and that reminder of where you've been. I think it's really important to communicate to the player a sense of progression in both short-term and long-term goals. You may see the explosions on repeat here. Unfortunately, they're a little bit weird in Forge. So yeah, a lot of this is a sense of progression and rising a climax. I think you can see it best from where you come from this position of power, thrown after that into a position where you are not in control. You are often below the enemy and they're above you. You still get a good visual on them as you come through. Also, between fights, it was important for me to have a bit of a distinction and breather for the player. So after the initial encounter here, you get the cave section. And after the village, you get this little brief respite here. And after the factory, you also get this hallway. We can take a moment before leaping into your next encounter. So a lot of this, I did use symmetrical design. So as you can see here, the player comes in and both sides are the exact same. There's minor differences depending on the sandbox here and there. There's some explosives and whatnot. I mainly use symmetrical design here to communicate to the player a lot of information really quickly. That way you're not having to search the entire area because it's symmetrical. You can get a rough idea on how you might want to progress. If you want to go from cover here to cover there, you know how to get there nice, quickly, and easily. The village is very similar. Ultimately, it does have a very symmetrical design with the houses along here, but there are differences in how their cover is designated. And on the outskirts, you have differences as well. You have your river here, where you have less cover, but enemies aren't going to be able to loop around here. Whereas here, you're quite sheltered in. You've got a few options for cover, and you've also got a height advantage over the enemy. So from there, that's most of the level here. This has been a bit of a blockout study, and it will be getting a bit of a visual overhaul gradually over time, so it actually looks the part. The story coming into it was very much crash landing in an abandoned UNSC facility of some kind. A lot of ruins and forested and overgrown areas, and it's clear that the Banished are not only hunting you, but they seem to have repurposed this area for their own means somewhat. But anyway, thanks for taking the time to listen. I hope this was informative for you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.